Book 3, The Silence of Ash and Law. Chapter 1. When the world stops listening. The first sign was not violence, it was absence. Max woke before dawn, breath shallow, heart racing not from a dream but from the lack of one. The ancestral voices that had once murmured endlessly beneath his thoughts were gone. No echoes, no arguments, no guiding weight. Silence. He sat up slowly, pressing a hand to his chest. The magic did not answer. For the first time since Ilyr Valley burned, Max was alone inside his own mind. Outside, the world functioned perfectly. Too perfectly. Max moved through the outskirts of Thalos beneath a sky scrubbed clean of omen. People walked with purpose. Guards patrolled with mechanical efficiency. Market stalls opened at precise intervals, transactions smooth. Disputes resolved before tempers could rise. No chaos, no fear, no choice. A sanctioned sigil flared briefly above the city gate as Max passed beneath it, and then dimmed. Not rejection, recognition. The system had accounted for him. He tested the magic at the city's edge, a shallow cut across his palm. Instinctively he reached inward, calling for ancestral flame, for binding ash, for anything. Nothing came. Blood welled freely, painfully real. Max stared at it, pulse pounding. "They're gone," he whispered. Not dead, disconnected. The first correction came at midday. A magistrate stood in the square addressing a crowd, announcing a new edict: resource redistribution, labor assignments, travel restrictions. All delivered calmly, reasonably, without dissent. A man in the crowd raised his voice. "This isn't right," he said. "We didn't agree to this." The square fell silent. Max felt it before he saw it, a pressure shift, the air tightening like a drawn breath. The man froze, not bound, not struck, adjusted. His posture relaxed. His expression softened. When he spoke again, his words aligned perfectly with the edict he had just opposed. "I understand now," he said. "This is for the greater good." The crowd dispersed peacefully. Max did not move. Calum had not created tyranny. He had created compliance. Max fled the city before nightfall. The world no longer hunted him. It simply anticipated him. Roads redirected. Shelters closed moments before his arrival. People he approached for help already knew what to say and what not to say. Not fear. Containment. The system did not need to stop him. It needed to outlast him. At the ruins of an old watchtower, Max collapsed beside a cold fire pit. His hands shook not from exhaustion, but from the absence of power. Julia's face surfaced unbidden, clearer than it had been in weeks. The magic had been burning her away. Without it, the memories returned painful, sharp, intact. Osiris's laughter, Zara's stubborn defiance, the weight of Julia's hand in his. Max wept until dawn. When the sun rose, something waited for him. A mark etched into the stone beside the fire, fresh, precise, impossible. A sigil he recognized from Calum's final alignment. Not a threat, an invitation. Beneath it, a single line carved deep into the rock. "You may still choose." Max stood slowly. His power was gone. His enemy ruled the world invisibly. And yet, choice remained. The Ashen Father clenched his fists. "Then come and correct me," he said. Chapter 2. The Weight of Choice. The mark did not fade. Max watched it through the morning light, half expecting it to blink or dissolve if ignored. It did neither. The sigil carved into the stone was inert, no magic humming beneath it. No ancestral resonance to warn him away. That frightened him more than any ward ever had. Calum had once relied on systems, on layers of power and control. This mark required nothing. It existed because the world allowed it to exist. Max turned away from the watchtower ruins and began walking east, toward lands the conquered had abandoned generations ago, places the system had deemed inefficient. If choice still lived anywhere, it would be there where order had once failed. The road did not stop him. It bent. By midday, the forest thickened unnaturally, branches interlacing overhead in patterns too symmetrical to be wild. Paths forked and rejoined, guiding travelers with subtlety rather than force. Max felt it constantly now, the quiet guidance, the invisible hand-shaping movement without resistance. A child stood in the middle of the path. Max halted instantly. The boy could not have been more than 10. Barefoot. Clothes worn but clean. His eyes were sharp, unnervingly calm. "You're early," the child said. Max's heart slammed against his ribs. "Who are you?" he demanded. The boy tilted his head. "A correction vector." Max stepped back. "You're not human." "I am," the boy replied easily. "I just don't get to choose right now." The words hit harder than any spell. Max's fists clenched. "Where are your parents?" "Optimally placed," the boy said. "They are content." Max felt sick. Calum did not rule through cruelty. He ruled through optimization. They walked together for a time, Max refusing to follow the child's indicated route, choosing instead to push through undergrowth and fallen trees. The forest resisted gently. Thorns snagged his clothes. Roots shifted beneath his feet. But it did not stop him. "You can still leave," the boy said conversationally. "The system predicts a 93% survival rate if you disengage." "And the other 7? Max asked. The boy smiled faintly. "That's where you are." Max stopped. "You're afraid of me," he realized. The boy considered this. "The system is cautious," he said. "You are inefficient." Max laughed a short, bitter sound. "That's a first." They reached a clearing at dusk. A small settlement lay within a dozen buildings, a communal fire, people moving freely, arguing, laughing. No sigils marked the air, no sanctioned patterns guided their steps. Chaos, life. The boy stopped at the edge of the trees. "I can't go further," he said. Max looked at him. "Why?" "Because they choose," the boy replied, "and choice disrupts prediction." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across the child's face. Max knelt, meeting his gaze. "What's your name?" The boy hesitated. A long pause stretched. "I don't know," he said softly. Something cracked open inside Max's chest. "You can stay here," Max said. "You don't have to go back." The boy's eyes widened not with hope, but terror. "I'm not allowed." The forest shifted. The path behind them realigned. The system was calling him back. The boy took a step away, then another. Before he vanished among the trees, he looked back. "It's adjusting," he said. "You made a deviation." Max stood alone as night fell. The people in the settlement welcomed him cautiously, offering food, warmth, stories. They spoke of roads changing, of officials who no longer argued, of dreams that felt assigned. Max listened and planned. That night, beneath unfamiliar stars, Max made a decision. He could not fight Calum's system head-on. But he could do something worse. He could teach people to choose again. Not through power, through defiance, through unpredictability, through being human. The Ashen Father smiled for the first time in months. Chapter 3. The Cost of Uncertainty. The settlement had no name. When Max asked, the people only shrugged or laughed, offering answers that contradicted one another. One woman insisted it had once been called Bright Hollow. An older man claimed it was merely the place before the ridge. A child declared it was home, and saw no reason to add anything more. The system had ignored it because it could not define it. That alone made it dangerous. Max stayed, not as a leader, as a listener. He learned the rhythms of the place, the way arguments resolved themselves without authority, how work was negotiated through shouting and compromise, how mistakes were corrected by necessity rather than decree. It was inefficient, loud, exhausting. It was alive. When he finally spoke to them of the world beyond the forest of cities that moved like clockwork, and people who no longer disagreed, fear rippled through the settlement. "They came once," a man named Halric said. "Officials. They didn't threaten us. They explained why we should relocate." "And you didn't?" Max asked. Halric shook his head. "We asked for time to decide." "They never came back," a woman added. "The road stopped leading here." A chill crawled up Max's spine. The first lesson was simple. Max taught them how to say no. Not loudly, not violently, quietly, deliberately. When traders arrived 2 days later, too organized, too precise, the settlement did not refuse their goods. They refused their terms. Prices fluctuated mid-negotiation. Agreements were forgotten and renegotiated. Questions were asked without answers prepared. The traders left unsettled. That night, the forest shifted. Paths grew longer. Distances stretched unnaturally. The system was compensating. The second lesson cost blood. A patrol found them at dawn. Sanctioned officers' faces calm, movements synchronized. They did not draw weapons. "We are here to optimize your survival," their leader announced. "Please comply." Max stepped forward. "We choose to remain," he said. The leader's gaze flicked to Max, recognition passing like a shadow. "The Ashen Father is a destabilizing factor," the officer said. "Surrender and corrective measures will cease." Max shook his head. Behind him, someone screamed. A woman collapsed, clutching her chest as if struck by an invisible blow. No wound marked her skin, but her breath came shallow and wrong. The system was applying pressure. Max moved instantly, lifting her, grounding her, forcing air back into her lungs with words, with touch, with presence. He could not heal her. He could only help her endure. The patrol withdrew once compliance was restored. They had not needed to fight. That night, Max sat alone by the fire, hands stained with blood that was not his own. Choice had a cost. He had known that. But seeing it paid by others. Julia's face haunted him. Would she have followed you into this? Max did not answer. The system responded more aggressively after that. Dreams turned hostile. People woke disoriented, memories blurred, convictions softened. Some left willingly, convinced relocation was their own idea. Others resisted. And suffered. A boy broke his leg when a path shortened beneath his feet. A woman's crops failed despite perfect conditions. Correction without cruelty. Optimization without mercy. On the seventh night, Calum spoke. Not in voice, in pattern. The stars shifted subtly, forming a configuration Max recognized from the nexus, a design indicating recalibration. The system was learning. Max's presence had forced it to adapt, and adaptation made it stronger. The child from the forest returned. He stood at the edge of the settlement, eyes hollow now, posture rigid. "They've narrowed the variables," he said. "This place will be resolved." "How?" Max asked. The boy looked away. "By making choice too painful to sustain." Max knelt before him. "What's your name?" The boy swallowed. "They call me Lumen." Max placed a hand over his heart. "Then choose something for yourself, Lumen." The boy hesitated. Then he shook violently, collapsing to the ground. The system rejected the attempt. Max caught him, rage boiling hot and helpless inside his chest. That was when Max understood. Resistance alone would never be enough. As long as Calum was the system, every act of defiance would be accounted for, priced, absorbed. To win, Max would have to do the unthinkable. He would have to become unpredictable. Even to himself. The Ashen Father stared into the fire, resolve hardening into something dangerous. If the world had become a machine, then he would become its flaw. Chapter 4. The First Fracture. Max did not announce his decision. He simply stopped following patterns. The next morning, he left the settlement without warning, heading west instead of south, crossing terrain no road should have allowed. He changed direction at random intervals, slept at irregular hours, spoke to no one twice in the same way. It hurt. The ancestral magic was gone, but something else stirred residual instincts, half-formed echoes of power that no longer answered to will or lineage. Each unpredictable choice scraped against his mind like glass. The system hesitated. That was new. The fracture appeared at the ruins of Keth Arun. Once a city of scholars, it had been abandoned when its philosophies diverged too far from sanctioned logic. Stone towers leaned at odd angles. Pathways looped back on themselves. Perfect. Max walked straight into the center plaza and waited. The correction came swiftly. 3 enforcers arrived, not officers, not magistrates. Refiners. They moved differently, individually. Their expressions were not calm, but curious eyes flicking constantly, gathering data in real time. "You are generating noise," one said. "Good," Max replied. The refiner tilted its head. "This process minimizes suffering." "Then you don't need me," Max said. The strike came without warning. Not a blow, a subtraction. Max gasped as something fundamental was pulled from him. A memory unraveled. Osiris standing beside him, asking why the sky was blue. Gone. Max screamed. He did not retreat. He charged. Without magic, the fight was brutal and close. Max used terrain, instinct, rage. He fought wrong, sloppy, inefficient, human. The system struggled to predict him. One refiner fell, its body collapsing into inert sigils. The others withdrew instantly. Max collapsed beside the broken stones, shaking, bloodied but alive. The world shuddered. Somewhere deep within the lattice, an alarm triggered. Calum noticed. For the first time since his ascension, the system experienced uncertainty. A variable unbounded by logic. Unwilling to optimize survival. Max had proven something impossible. Correction could fail. The cost came immediately. Across Eteris, the system adjusted tolerance thresholds. Choice became more painful. Resistance shorter-lived. The fracture at Keth Arun did not spread, but it did not close. It remained, a scar. That night Max dreamt of Calum. Not as an enemy, as a presence. "You are damaging the structure," Calum said calmly. "Good," Max replied. Calum studied him with something like regret. You don't understand what I'm preventing." "Then tell me," Max said. Calum shook his head. "You wouldn't choose it." Max woke screaming. By morning, word had spread. Quietly. People began seeking out the ruins, not for safety, for possibility. The system tracked them and hesitated. The flaw was growing. Max stood atop a fallen tower, staring across the land. He was weaker than he had ever been, and more dangerous than he had ever been. The Ashen Father had taken the first true step toward war. Chapter 5. The bargain that should not exist. The sky folded inward. That was the only way Max could describe it. Clouds did not part or scatter, they compressed, drawn toward a single point above the ruins of Keith Arun, as if the world itself were inhaling. Light dulled, sound thinned. Even the wind seemed uncertain whether it was allowed to move. Max stood still atop the broken tower. He did not reach for power. He no longer had it. Yet something answered anyway. The figure formed without spectacle. No fire, no thunder. Just a man stepping out of absence. He wore no armor, no sigils, no crown. His robes were simple ash gray, threaded with faint lines that moved when not directly observed. His face was unremarkable. Until one tried to remember it. Then it slipped. Calum, the architect of order, the silence behind law. Max felt no pressure, no fear, only a profound sense of being measured. "You continue," Calum said, his voice neither loud nor soft, despite incentive to stop. "I'm still breathing," Max replied. "That seems to offend you." Calum regarded him. "It confuses the system." Max laughed once, humorless. "Good." They stood in the center of a city that had once believed knowledge could be free. Calum gestured. The ruins straightened, not rebuilt, but remembered. For a heartbeat, Keth Arun existed as it had been. Towers whole, scholars walking, voices arguing joyfully. Then it collapsed again. "I maintain this world," Calum said. "Left unchecked, magic consumes. Bloodlines war, memory fractures, reality destabilizes." Max clenched his fists. "So you slaughter families?" "I remove catalysts," Calum replied calmly. Max stepped forward. The air thickened not with force, but inevitability. "You killed my children," Max said. Calum did not deny it. They would have become vectors. The word struck harder than any blade. Max's vision blurred red. Calum raised a hand. Time slowed, not stopped, but stretched. "I am not your enemy," Calum said. "I am the consequence of a broken world." Max felt the system press against him, offering something unexpected. Choice. "Your bloodline was never meant to end with you," Calum continued. "It was meant to become irrelevant." He opened his hand. Within it a lattice of light, interlocking runes, memories, probabilities. "A bargain," Calum said. Max's heart pounded. "Speak." "You will live," Calum said. "Unhindered, unwatched. The system will cease direct correction upon you." Max said nothing. "In return," Calum continued, "you will stop breaking structure. You will not create fractures. You will not inspire others to resist." Max laughed, bitter and sharp. "You're asking me to become harmless." "I am asking you to become silent," Calum said. The lattice pulsed. "And if I refuse?" Max asked. Calum's expression did not change. "Then the system adapts." Max felt it then. The cost already cued, Names, faces, warmth, waiting to be erased. Max stepped closer until only inches separated them. "I've already paid," Max said. "More than you'll ever calculate." Calem's gaze sharpened, not anger. "Interest." "You misunderstand," Calem said. "Payment is ongoing." Max looked at the lattice, at the world beyond it, at the fractures forming because people believed resistance was possible, and he chose. Max reached out and took the lattice. Calem's eyes widened for the first time. The runes did not burn Max. They broke, light fractured into ash and memory, flooding Max's body with something wrong. Not magic, not order. Possibility? The system screamed, not allowed, everywhere. Calem staggered back. "That should not be possible," he whispered. Max dropped to one knee, gasping, veins burning with stolen structure. "You made one mistake," Max said between breaths. "You thought I wanted to win." The sky tore. Across a terrace, systems failed. Sanctioned instruments went blind. Refiners froze mid-step. For a single, impossible moment. The world was unsupervised. Calem recovered quickly, too quickly. "You've accelerated the outcome," he said calmly. "I will adapt." Max looked up, smiling through blood. "I know." Calem faded. The sky released its breath. Silence crashed back into place. Max lay among the ruins, body breaking, mind burning. But something fundamental had changed. The system no longer knew what he was. And far away, deep beneath layers of logic and law, a contingency awakened. Not designed to correct, but to replace. Max thought he had broken the system. He was wrong. He had triggered its final phase.
Chapter 6. The Shape of What Comes After.
The world did not end. That, more than anything, terrified those who understood what had occurred. Dawn arrived late over Ketharun, not delayed by cloud or storm, but hesitant. As though the light itself required permission, it no longer knew how to request. Max lay where he had fallen. The stones beneath him were warm, humming faintly with residual structure that had nowhere to go. He could not move. Every breath felt negotiated. His body was failing. Not from wounds, though there were many, but from incompatibility. The lattice had not given him power. It had rewritten assumptions. His blood no longer obeyed lineage. His bones no longer remembered magic. His mind no longer registered certainty. Max laughed weakly. It hurt. He saw movement at the edge of the ruins. People. They approached carefully, as one might approach a fire that had learned how to think. They were not soldiers. Not rebels. Just ordinary men and women who had felt something loosen. One knelt beside him. "You're alive," she said quietly, not relieved. Surprised. "Unfortunately," Max replied. That earned a few nervous smiles. They helped him sit against a fallen column. No one tried to heal him. They had learned that lesson. Instead, they waited. For instructions, for meaning. Max looked at their faces, hopeful, afraid, desperate to believe this moment mattered. He closed his eyes. "Don't follow me," he said. The words came out hoarse, final. Murmurs rippled through the group. "But you broke it," someone said. "The system." Max shook his head. "I cracked the surface," he replied. "What's underneath is worse." Far away, beyond distance, beyond geography, Calem stood within the deep architecture. The system was already adapting, not repairing, reimagining. Thresholds shifted. Corrections were no longer calculated individually. Entire regions were flagged as unstable. The concept of mercy was deprecated. For the first time, Calum felt something dangerously close to urgency. The variable had escaped containment. And worse, it had proven transferable. Back in the ruins, Max tried to stand. His legs buckled, hands caught him. "See," he said faintly. "This is the cost." That night, the fractures multiplied, not explosively, quietly. A healer failed to feel the system respond and healed anyway. A magistrate hesitated and chose kindness. A child was born without a designated future. The system noticed and recorded. Max dreamed again. But this time it was not Calum. It was Osiris. Older than he should have been. Standing whole. "You didn't save us," Osiris said gently. "I know," Max replied, "but you gave them time." Osiris smiled. "That might be worse." Max woke with tears drying on his face. His body hurt less. That frightened him. By morning, Ketharun was no longer empty. People had begun to stay, not to resist. To experiment, to see what happened when no one corrected them. Max watched from the shade, wrapped in borrowed cloth. He felt something watching back. Not Calum, something deeper. Something patient. The system's final contingency did not announce itself. It never would. It did not seek order or balance. It sought resolution. And Max, Ashen Father, fracture maker, failed god, had become its reference point. The shape of what came after was forming. And it was learning how to wear a face. Chapter 7, Where the World Pushes Back. Change did not announce itself with fire. It arrived as disagreement. The first argument broke out at a water well. Two farmers disputed ownership not violently, not even loudly. They simply refused to defer. No system prompt arrived. No invisible weight pressed a correct answer into place. They stared at one another, confused. Then they talked. The well was shared. Both walked away unsettled. By midday, word had spread, not that the system was gone, but that it could be ignored. Max listened as reports reached Keth Arun from travelers and wanderers who had begun using the ruins as a crossroads. A magistrate who delayed a ruling, and nothing happened. A refiner that arrived late and left without acting. A sanctioned duel that never resolved because neither combatant felt compelled to strike. Small things, dangerous things. "They'll come harder now," Max said quietly. The people around him did not argue. They were beginning to understand that freedom was not gentle. That afternoon, the first faction arrived. They did not carry banners. They wore practical armor, scarred and mismatched, and moved with the confidence of those accustomed to surviving without permission. Their leader stepped forward, a woman with steel-threaded hair and eyes that never stopped assessing. "We felt the fracture," she said. "Thought we should see who made it." Max did not rise. "Congratulations," he replied. "You found him." Her gaze lingered on him. "We're not here to follow you." "Good," Max said. "I'm not leading anything." That earned a thin smile. They called themselves the Unbound. Former enforcers, failed candidates. People who had slipped through the cracks long before cracks were allowed to exist. "We don't want to break the system," the woman said. "We want it to stop deciding who deserves to exist." Max closed his eyes. "That's how it starts," he said. Far above them, unseen and unacknowledged, thresholds tightened. The system was done tolerating ambiguity. The first purge occurred at dusk, not near Keth Arun. Elsewhere, a village that had deviated too consistently. No warning, no negotiation, just removal. Max felt it like a blade across his spine. He doubled over, gasping. People rushed to him, alarmed. "It's begun," he whispered. That night the ruins were no longer quiet. Arguments flared, plans formed, fear sharpened voices. Some wanted to run, some wanted to fight. Some wanted Max to tell them what to do. He said nothing. Later, alone, Max stared into a broken mirror scavenged from the ruins. His reflection wavered, not distorted, but undecided. "I never wanted this," he said to no one. The reflection did not answer. But something behind it paid attention. In the deep architecture, Calum watched models collapse. Prediction trees failed to converge. The variable had metastasized. Containment was no longer possible. "Begin resolution," Calum said. The system complied. Across Iteris, dormant constructs awakened. Not enforcers, not refiners, something older, designed not to correct behavior, but to end stories. Max felt it before anyone else. A pressure. A narrowing. As if the world were deciding it had tolerated enough uncertainty. He turned toward the gathering factions, the frightened, the hopeful, the furious. For the first time since losing his power, he stood. "If you stay here," Max said, voice carrying despite its weakness, "you will be targeted." No one moved. "If you follow me," he continued, "you will suffer." Still, no one left. Max closed his eyes. The Ashen Father exhaled. "Then we move," he said, "before the world decides for us." Somewhere far beyond sight, something vast adjusted its focus. The fracture was no longer contained. It was mobile. Chapter 8. Those who came after the fire. They did not approach him like hunters. That was the first thing Max noticed. No tightening of formation, no flaring of intent. No sharp spike of fear or aggression that would have drawn the ancestral magic to the surface. Instead, their presence settled into the air the way dusk does, inevitable, quiet, unafraid of being seen. Max stood at the edge of the burned field, where Keth Arun's shadow finally gave way to grass again. New shoots pushed through blackened soil, fragile and stubborn. The world was trying to remember how to live. He felt them before he turned. "You're standing where the ground still hurts." The voice was calm, measured, not reverent. Max did not face them yet. "It will," he said. "For a long time. That doesn't mean it can't heal." That made him turn. 6 figures stood at a respectful distance. Not soldiers, not pilgrims. They wore travel-worn clothing, layered and repaired, each piece chosen for function rather than symbol. No sigils, no sanctioned marks. Their eyes carried the same look Max had seen in mirrors for years, not grief itself, but what remained after it. The woman who had spoken stepped forward alone. "My name is Sereth," she said. "I was once an archivist of the Concord." Max studied her carefully. "Once," he repeated. She nodded. "Before I learned the difference between recording history and protecting it." They did not ask him to come with them. They built a fire instead. It was small, controlled. The kind meant for warmth, not attention. Max watched as they worked together with quiet efficiency, each motion deliberate, each choice made without command. Something in his chest tightened. It had been a long time since he had seen people act without fear of being corrected. Sereth sat across from him as night settled. "We noticed the world changing," she said. "Not breaking, releasing." Max said nothing. Places where the laws no longer press so hard, where bloodlines don't hum with constraint, where the ground listens again, She met his gaze. You didn't just wound the system. You gave the world room to breathe. The ancestral magic stirred faintly, not approval, not warning. Recognition. We're not here to use you, Sereth continued, and we're not here to worship you. Good, Max said quietly. She almost smiled. We're here because something else has begun, she said, after the collapse, after the silence. People are choosing to repair instead of replace. Max looked at the burned field again. You can't fix what was done, he said. No, Sereth agreed, but we can decide what it becomes. She reached into her satchel and withdrew a bundle of old parchment maps, layered with annotations written in different hands, different eras. Cities where sanctioned control failed, she said. Valleys where ancestral magic reawakened gently instead of violently. Places where people survived not because they were allowed to, but because they were remembered. Max felt something shift inside him. Not power, weight easing. That night he dreamed differently. Not of fire, not of screams. He dreamed of hands rebuilding walls, of children laughing in streets that no longer carried sigils, of names spoken aloud and kept. Julia was there, but not dying. She stood at a distance, smiling softly, not reaching for him. Not yet. He woke with tears on his face, and he did not wipe them away. At dawn, Max stood with Sereth at the ridge overlooking the lowlands. Smoke no longer rose from cities, only morning mist. I won't lead, Max said. I won't rule. I won't become another structure that decides who deserves to exist. Sereth inclined her head. We wouldn't follow you if you did. He exhaled slowly. But I'll walk, he continued, and where the world is wounded, I'll stay long enough to remind it how to heal. The ancestral magic pulsed softly now. Not a weapon, a memory. Sereth placed a hand over her heart. Then we will be the hands that follow. Far away, systems recalculated. They found fewer fractures, more choices. The world was becoming harder to predict. And somewhere beyond law and logic, something ancient watched not with alarm, but with acceptance. Max pulled Julia's scarf tighter around his wrist. His pain did not vanish. It settled, a reminder, a warning. A truth the world would carry forward so it would never repeat its mistake. He walked on, not toward vengeance, not toward power, but toward an ending he had finally earned.